So a few last terms for you to know about, or important terms for you to know about when talking about operating systems. One of them is multitasking, and multitasking refers to being able to run multiple programs at the same time. It has not always been this way with computers. Back in the day, computers could only run one program or one task at a time, and that was single tasking, maybe. But then there's a great innovation, and it was a big innovation back in the day, where we were then able to run multiple tasks or multiple programs at the same time, and that's known as multitasking. And it's not like the CPU is actually doing two things at once. If you have a single CPU, it can only do one thing at a time if you have a single CPU. But it could do it could do things so quickly, you could actually have multiple things running, multiple programs, multiple tasks running, and the CPU will switch between them really quickly. So you could have Word, you could have a browser, and it's processing the zeros and ones for each of those programs, right? And do a little this, do a little that, a little this, a little that, and it's doing it so quickly it looks like it's maybe doing it at the same time. In reality, it's only doing one at a time. It's just be switching between the two really quick. But that's multitasking, running multiple programs or tasks at the same time. Multiprocessing is if you have multiple processors, so more than one processor. And if you have multiple processors, they are working on, whatever it is you have running. And so multiprocessing is when you just have multiple processors working on whatever tasks you happen to be running or whatever applications you happen to be running. So multiprocessing, the basic definition is, just computer running multiple processors. And the operating system has to be programmed to do that. It's a lot more involved than just the basic definition I'm giving, and it's a bit of that rabbit hole, Alice in Wonderland's rabbit hole. So you could read about it if you'd like to know a little bit more about multiprocessing. And then there's parallel processing, and again, parallel processing is a bit of this rabbit hole where there's a lot more to know about it. We'll look at that just in a moment. But parallel processing is like multiprocessing, having multiple processors. But with parallel processing, these processors are working on the same task in parallel at the same time. So they both work on Word, they both work on opening the web page. And that's actually more difficult to get to have happen. And it's something that you see in servers and mainframes. So you can read about parallel processing here, is the simultaneous use of more than one CPU to execute a program or multiple computational threads. Ideally, parallel processing makes programs run faster because there are more CPUs running it. In practice, it's often difficult to divide a program in such a way that separate CPUs can execute different portions without interfering with each other, right? So having the same multiple CPUs working on the same problem in parallel, pretty difficult. Multiprocessing, you have multiple CPUs and they're just executing whatever threads are coming through. And they're not working on the same thing at the same time in parallel. So those are a few terms you should know about. And operating systems are what kind of make multiprocessing, parallel processing, and multitasking all possible. And don't worry if you confuse these, because after teaching this class for how many years, these are still things where I'm like, who cares? And they get a little confused in my brain. But just thought it would be good for you to know about them.